Today we're reviewing the Surly Sunrise Handlebar. Over the past month and a half, I've been able to put 150 miles on this handlebar, both in trail use and in bikepacking use. And there's not a lot of info out there, so I wanted to put this video together for those considering this bar. The Surly Sunrise Handlebar is one of the cheapest riser bars on the market, and it's available at almost any shop. It's only $65. It's made out of chromoly steel. Now, cockpit setup is extremely personal. Everybody likes something different, just like your favorite tires or your favorite grips or your favorite saddle. But experimenting with handlebar sweep and rise and height really changes how a bike behaves and how it feels. A riser bar like this can get you a much more upright, laid-back riding position. If you find yourself hunched over too much or with a lot of shoulder pain or lower back pain, a riser bar might be a good option for you. And the Surly Sunrise Handlebar is kind of the gateway bar for people to experiment with riser bars. It's only $65, so it's cheap to experiment with, and you might stumble on greatness and find something that you really love about it. Right off the bat, this bar is extremely heavy. I don't know of another way to make your bike heavier for $65. It's so noticeable. I'm not a weight weenie, but when I picked this thing up, I could not believe how heavy it was. But for $65, I wanted to try it to see if a riser bar was something that I could benefit from. Surly claims a weight of 778 grams, but when I weighed it on my scale, it was 834 grams, over 1.8 pounds for a handlebar. It noticeably increased the weight of my bike, but like I said, this was an experiment, and when you buy Surly stuff, you're not buying it because it's lightweight. All Surly stuff is heavy, but it's also economical. These bars have an 83 millimeter rise, which is quite tall. They are 820 millimeters wide. They have a 14.7 degree back sweep. That's a lot of back sweep. So instead of being straight, the bars are kinked back a little for comfort. And they have a 6.7 degree up sweep at the end. So the bars actually sweep up a little bit. That makes for an extremely comfortable cockpit. It does not feel like an XC race bike where you're down and over the front and just in attack position all day. It feels like you're on your old beach cruiser riding around a town just hanging out, and it's comfortable, it's upright, your shoulders are rolled back, your chest is opened up, you sit more upright, and I really like that, especially in bikepacking mode. The back sweep is significant enough that it shortens your effective reach when riding the bike. So if your bike feels a little too long, this could be another way to bring the effective reach back a little bit and not feel super stretched out on the bike. So when bikepacking, I like a short cockpit, and I like to be upright, I like to be relaxed. It gave me extra room to attach bags and mounts on. Now the crossbar is a little bit smaller than most, so a lot of my clamps didn't quite fit. I had to wrap it with a lot of tape to make it fatter to stick clamps on. But I really liked the way it opened up the cockpit for bags. I liked the way it opened up my riding position, and I liked the way that it shortened up my modern long trail bike for long days in the saddle. It's actually a really cool way to get that short cockpit comfortable ride for bikepacking, and then just swapping bars, I can go back to my attack position for aggressive trail riding. As a bikepacking bar, I really liked it. Since you're loading your bike up with water and food and tents and heavy things, I didn't notice the weight quite so much. And bikepacking, I'm not super weight conscious, so it really fit well there for me. Trail riding, I did notice the shorter reach, but I also appreciated the taller stack. I'm underforking this bike, so the stack's already a little bit lower than stock, and this brought it up higher than stock, which I love a tall stack when you're descending. Instead of being hunched over, leaning all your weight downhill, feeling like you're gonna flip, it was an upright, comfy ride. It kind of reminded me of a comfy fat bike or a beach cruiser, just kind of upright, laid back, but you still got that nice long wheelbase for stability. So it was less attack position on the downhills, but it was more comfortable and just kind of chill for long days. I rode it in this format down Mount Lemmon in Tucson, Arizona. And after the first 10 minutes, I was totally used to it. It just felt like a shorter, a little bit more compact bike, but I had no trouble going down Milagrosa and the big ledges down there. It gave me a lot of confidence. It made the bike feel like it was one size smaller in the reach department, made it feel a little bit more tucked in, and a lot of people are gonna like that. I did find myself at times wishing I was a little more stretched out. So to me, the Sunrise bar is a great way to make a bike that feels slightly too long feel just right and pull that in a little bit and feel comfortable and more upright. Surprisingly, on the technical climbs, it wasn't a huge disadvantage. I was able to adapt just fine and keep the front end down, but you do sit up a little bit higher. So it's just a different riding position, and that's going to be different for everybody. One thing I did not like about these bars is how stiff they are. They are incredibly stiff. And even though they're steel, man, they beat me up and my wrists were hurting at the end of that ride. They're also really hard to cut. This is thick steel. I trimmed them down to 760, and using my pipe cutter took like 20 minutes, and I went through 2 blades. It was really hard to do. Should have used a hacksaw or a bandsaw for that, but what's done is done. So they're heavy, they're stiff, they don't feel premium, but they're fine. It's a great way to experiment with riser bars to see if it's something that you like. A lot of my buddies who are over 6'4" run these on their bikes because it gives them a much more proportional ride feel and body position on the bike. They keep their steer tubes uncut, run a whole bunch of spacers, and run these bars, and then they don't look like a giant on a kid's bike. It looks like the bike actually fits them. So if you're super tall, or you like a really upright ride, or you're used to BMX bikes or cruiser bikes from when you were a kid, and you want that feeling, look into something like the Surly Sunrise bar. I feel like it's the gateway bar into riser bars. There are a lot of boutique makers making titanium versions that are way lighter, and even some carbon riser bars. So I think everyone should experiment with one of these. It's not going to be my main bar on this bike. I'll probably throw it on when I go bikepacking. I'll probably throw it on my old retro GT to give it less of a hunched over feel and more of a beach cruiser feel. But it's been really fun to experiment with. It does make me consider getting a nice high-end tie bar one day that's half the weight that I can run without feeling that massive weight difference. And hopefully they're a little bit more springy or supple feeling. These things were really stiff. They're really thick. Also, when you look inside there, you can see the inside of the tube is rusting. They're only painted to like the last inch inside, and I didn't love seeing that, but these are so thick and so burly, I don't think anything's gonna happen to them. The shape and the sweep and the rise feels perfect to me. And there's a reason so many other companies copy this bar. They did a really good job on this. This bar starts as a single tube of steel that's 22.2 millimeters around, and then they bend it for the shape. Unfortunately, stems are not 22.2 millimeters anymore, so this comes with aluminum spacers to clamp between your bar and your stem to make it fit a 31.8 stem. So this isn't going to work with a modern 35 mil clamp stem. It's simply too small. Why do they do that? Because of the manufacturing process. It'd be far too complex to put a bigger tube here when they build it. So they include the shims to put that on. Now the shims aren't quite as wide as I would like. My stem is fairly wide, and other stems are too these days. I wish the shims were 2 or 3 millimeters wider, but it works. I think everybody should try these at some point in their life. Borrow them off a buddy or buy a set amongst your buddies and swap it around and see what you guys like about it and what you don't like about it. You might be surprised. You might really like it, or you might really hate it. I'm a fan in the right situation. So who's this handlebar for? I think it's for a lot of different people. I think it's for the experimental people that want to try different things, that aren't happy with their cockpit setup, that kind of want a more upright, laid back, cruiser feel. I would recommend this for older riders who may have back pain or joint pain, or who feel hunched over a lot of the time and just want to relax a little bit more while enjoying the trail. I would recommend this for taller riders, especially people taller than 6'4". Bikes aren't really meant for people your size, and a simple cockpit adjustment like this can make a world of a difference. I recommend this for people who want more stack, who want a higher bar position, who feel like their nose is too far down when they're riding. I think this is a really cool option when you underfork a bike and then the front end drops. This gives you more leverage up top. It's easier to manual, it's easier to pick up the front end, it's easier to hop to a degree. I recommend this for people who want a little bit less reach, who may be spending a lot of time in the saddle and don't want to feel stretched out the whole time. I recommend this for retrofitters who are retrofitting an old school bike to ride a little bit more modern. I'm going to throw these on my 90s GT, and I think it's really going to modernize how that bike feels and rides. So who is this not for? This is not for weight weenies. It's extremely heavy. It's one of the fastest ways to make a light bike heavy. This is not for people with a 35 mil clamp stem. You might have to get a different stem to fit this. You might also be able to get a BMX stem, which are nice and cheap. You can get those for 30 to 50 bucks. You can experiment around with that as well. This is not for XC racers who want to be in that attack position with the lowered bars, the lower front end, the lower stack, where you're over the front when you're sprinting to keep the front down on really steep climbs. You might notice your bike wheeling more when you run this. So people that are struggling to keep their front end planted, this isn't going to help. This is just going to give you more leverage. Your bars are going to be even higher. Your weight's going to be further back, and it's going to be a lot easier to lift that front wheel. I know how to keep my front down with proper technique, so it wasn't a problem for me, but new riders are definitely going to feel that right off the bat. So there you have it. I'm glad that this bar exists. It's extremely heavy. It's extremely stiff. My wrists hurt a ton at the end of my rides with it, but the sweep and position and shape is perfect to me. The rise, the back sweep, the up sweep, it feels so comfortable. And there's a reason so many other people copy this bar when they're building custom riser bars. I think it's a perfect way to experiment and get to try different things on your bike at a low cost to decide if you do want to spring for the expensive versions down the road made out of titanium or carbon or lighter steel or aluminum. This has been a really fun experiment. If you learned something, give this video a thumbs up. If you need custom bike advice on components or which bike to buy next, I have a consultation service that I offer through Patreon. I'd love to help you over there, and it helps support this channel. Thanks for watching. There's a party in the mountains, and you're invited.